Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cloudcast, episode 138. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
And I'm Rory Summers.
Nearly forgot his name again.
No, I nearly went with my alter ego, actually, Andy. So I didn't forget my name. I just needed to make sure I looked at the back of the phone and checked which phone I was on today. That was all.
Did you not look inside your socks for the name tag?
That's less discreet. People know to check there.
Aye. Oh, right. I don't know about you lot, but I am knackered, and I'm blaming the clocks going back.
You would, because you're really old.
I am really old. Speaking of which, actually, have you noticed, right, recently, the Beatles of, Ringo Starr and all that, have recently released a new single, and the Rolling Stones have got back together. How far did the f***ing clocks go back?
How long have you been saving that joke up for, Andy?
That's right.
Oh, he stands in the mirror every morning on that one.
But
I did actually say a really random fact about the clocks going back.
okay.
The whole British summertime was actually invented by the great-great-grandfather of the lead singer of Coldplay.
No.
So that's another reason to hate Coldplay.
Hang
I
on.
didn't think we needed any more. Really, I thought yellow was enough. Really, after that, it was like no.
But hang on. And this is a southern problem, isn't it? You lot don't like British summertime, do you?
No.
Yeah,
There's no
you're all
need for
wrong.
it.
No, there's a lot.
No.
There's a lot of need for it.
No.
There's no need for the sun to come up at 3 o'clock in the morning, Sid. There really is no need.
No. And I don't want it dark at 3 p.m. It's bollocks. Just leave. Right, statistically, right, the 2 weeks following the clock changes, right, are like some of the most dangerous on the roads because everyone's half asleep. If we just left the clocks alone, the problem would go away.
No, it's just a southern. Go north. It matters.
I've lived there.
It's important.
Yes,
Yeah, but isn't it like dark for 22 hours anyway come mid-December?
until you get to the summer, in which case it's light at 11 p.m.
Yes. Because you don't shut the pubs at the silly times that you shut the southern pubs at. So 11
that's
o'clock,
true, yes.
we're still sat outside in the beer gardens,
Taps off.
roasting at like 15 degrees centigrade or whatever it is. Right?
He's not wrong.
And we're still chugging a few beers. And then we're just about thinking about topping the cork off a bottle of whiskey, aren't we? It's perfectly
Thinking
reasonable
about it,
thing
yeah.
to have.
Have you seen that photograph that was doing the roads a few years back? It was like a typical Scottish man, and it was a bloke in his back garden with his taps off because he was sunbathing. So he's in nice direct sunlight, but the half of the garden where the sun hadn't touched was still covered in snow.
Yes.
And was it raining in the transition?
Probably, yes.
Well, speaking of travelling, see what I did there.
Oh, well done.
Well, very good
Yes.
segue. Off the cuff.
I didn't go
there, Andy.
north a couple of weekends ago. In fact, was it last weekend? No.
Week and
Week and a half ago, as we record this. Late October, early November, I went to Airecon West, formerly known as Pool Party.
So, is this now Airecon, the second Airecon? Because I think there's now 3, isn't there?
Yes, there's another one in Manchester in
That's
a couple
it.
of weeks' time. I can't remember exactly, but it's the same weekend I'm going to see the Levellers, so I can't go to it, unfortunately. But I shall see a bunch of drunks playing the violin, which will be pretty good, I think. I quite like the Levellers. Anyway, yes, Airecon West, Pool Party, has now essentially been subsumed into the great behemoth that is Airecon. And Martin Poole, Mark Cooke, and that lot have arranged this in the Ramada Hotel in Telford. And it's a very intimate affair. There's only about 200 tickets, I think it is, if that, for the entire weekend. So it's quite small, so it's nowhere near of the sale of sort of regular Airecon. And it being in a hotel, basically, we just take over the hotel and all of its convention rooms for the weekend. Now, unlike a convention centre, you don't get turfed out at 11 o'clock because it's a hotel. So they have quite literal 24-hour gaming from sort of 2 p.m. on the Friday all the way up to 6 p.m. on the Sunday, which was nice. Now, I did not partake in that because I'm old and I needed to get home to get some sleep. But it was quite good fun. Lovely.
I realise I've set a precedent for myself now because I've just called Andy old therefore insinuating that I am not old, and I'm going to a gaming convention at a hotel this weekend, so now I have to pull an all-nighter just to prove that I'm young.
Yeah, you do. That's it. You've kind of shot yourself in the foot there, mate.
Well, I mean, you just have to tell us you did that.
100% what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be I set an alarm on my phone just to send you random board game pictures at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Scheduled emails and scheduled texts.
Exactly, yeah. Just do it. Right, okay. Right, disaster averted. Carry on, Andy.
Okay. And another good thing about being in the hotel is you could take advantage of the breakfast in the morning. So I had an all-you-can-eat dirty fry-up on the Sunday morning, which was also very nice. Ultimately, it was fun. Really good fun. Played a lot of games, actually. Usually I spend the weekend yapping at people, but because it was in separate rooms, I didn't get the chance to schmooze quite as much because it required effort to walk around.
Did you leave Hegemony at home as well?
I did, because it was in the games library.
That probably helped.
Now, funnily enough, there was a set of folk that played that, and they managed to get through in about 2.5 hours. So,
Shit.
But to be fair, 3 of them had played it before. So.
Okay.
I think one of them was fairly new to it, or at least new to the fact that it was a 4-player. I think they'd played it at 2 and 3 before, so they were quite familiar. Anyway, the games library was excellent. It had a huge array of different games ranging from sort of super light stuff like like Drop It, which I'll discuss in a minute, all the way up to the Lacerdas of recent years. So things like Weather Machine and On Mars and stuff were in the library. I think people even took them out, which was quite impressive. And learned Weather Machine on the fly, which I thought was brave.
That's spicy, isn't it?
It is. There are better people out there than us, Steve, I tell you.
Yes.
I also bumped into a fan of the show, a chap called Andy, who was very positive. He said he really enjoyed it. He questioned why I wasn't wearing my Polyhedron Collider T-shirt. This was on the Friday. So on the Saturday, I wore it just for him, which he was very grateful for. But he's a member of Caerphilly Board Gamers. Wanted me to give them a shout out, so I promised I would do that. So there you go, Andy. But he was very complimentary, very positive about us. So thank you very much, Andy. It's very nice to hear feedback. But yes, we played. I think you even commented at the time when I was throwing your pictures that we played a huge variety of games. So I didn't just stick to big, fat, heavy ones like I try to usually do. There were a lot of people demonstrating games and playing games, so we got sort of stuck into that. And Laura's quite social, so I get dragged along with that, despite my better judgment. So we ended up playing things like Project L, which I think you would all enjoy. It's very much a John game, actually. That's basically putting shapes into other shapes to score points, to get other shapes. We played Expeditions at 5, so I can feed back on that once you guys have played it. I'll not mention it too much now, but it's a better game with more. But I think 5 has too much downtime, is all I'm going to say for that. So I think Richard from Word Not Wizards is probably right on the money when he says the sweet spot is 3. But I haven't played it at 3, so I don't know. We've also played Drop It, which is a kind of almost like a sort of polygonal Connect 4. So the idea is you've got 4 different colours of shapes and about 4 different shapes. And the idea is up the side of this sort of plastic well that you basically drop these things into, you've essentially got a scoring zone across each well. So if your shape lands in this scoring zone, you'll get the number of points for the scoring zone, and there's a couple of bonuses up the way. But you're not allowed your shape to touch another shape of the same shape or of the same colour. So you've got to kind of be careful where you drop them, because obviously they bounce and they'll scatter, and if things are precariously balanced, they'll all fall apart, and your thing will end up next to something else, and it doesn't count, so you don't score any points. It's simple, but surprisingly fun. A recommendation from Mr. Cooke there. I managed to play Empire's Age of Discovery, which I've not played for about 4 years, which is an excellent sort of work placement programming game about discovering America, which I really quite enjoy. For such a simple mechanical game, it still takes quite a while to play, but it's very enjoyable. And lots of ways to play that. We played Slani quite a few times, which I really, really like. I think I've mentioned how to play it before, but that always goes down well. Now, one thing we did play that was kind of like a hit of the show, which everyone was taking out the library, was a game called Peublo. Now, it looks quite new, but apparently it's been around for about 20 years. So I don't know if this is seriously. I'm led to believe it was around, it's like 2002, 2003, something like that it was first released. But it's a very simple concept. You have a sort of a Tetris shape, sort of 3-dimensional block thing that's got, I think it's essentially 4 cubes, in a kind of a cube, a sort of 3-dimensional L shape, and they kind of slot together. Half of them are coloured and the other half are white. and you have this sort of grid that you put these shapes on. And you take it in turns to put these down, and you have to go in your turn. You'll put, say, one of your coloured ones down, and then the next one has to be a blank one. Then the next one has to be a coloured, and so on and so forth. The game ends when everyone's played all of their shapes. And the idea is there's this eagle going around the perimeter of this grid, and at the end of your go, you can move this eagle on up to 4 spaces. And wherever it lands, it kind of looks into the grid. And if it can see a colour, then you basically lose. So you score a point, but the person with the most points loses. So the person with the least points at the end of the game wins. So the idea is obviously to hide your own colours. And the higher level they are off the ground, the more points they're worth. So like if you're on level 2, it's worth 2 points, level 3 is worth 3 points, and so on and so forth. So the idea is you've got to kind of move the eagle on past your stuff so that it sees your opponent. Or you put a blank one in front of it so it hides the colour. But of course, there's only so many configurations you can put on these things before it starts getting a bit messy. But if it gets to the corner piece of each of these kind of quadrants, instead of looking along the line, obviously because it doesn't have anywhere to look, it looks across the overhead of that quadrant. So if you've got any pieces on the top, so you've tried to hide them from the side, but you've got them visible from the top, you get humped that way instead. It's an extremely clever but very fun game. So it's kind of reminiscent of the game we talked about last time, which kind of comes in the box and you're looking at the colour. So it's a bit, that's the one. It's reminiscent of that. It's a different mechanic, but it's kind of the sort of similar idea. And I think it's really, really good. Very clever game, very simple mechanic again. It's literally put block on board, move eagle, next player, done. Really straightforward, but really quite frustrating.
That does sound really interesting, actually.
It is. Yeah. It's really, really good. I think if you liked Block and Key, you will like Pueblo.
I think there's a new version of it either come out or just about to come out.
I suspect you're probably right.
Because you're right. It was 2002, according to Board Game Geek.
There you go.
But Board Game Geek has artwork of a new version, and it does say this. The artwork was put out last year.
Right.
So it's called the Studio Edition.
Okay.
By Mojito Studios.
That's the one. Yes, we played the Mojito one. So that was the same studio as they did that sort of stupid Cleopatra game that I backed a little while ago and sold on because it was just too big and ridiculous, and also crap. But
that's the most succinct review I've heard of ever.
Yes. Anyway, I learned how to play Monopoly Deal. Laura taught me that very quickly, which is actually surprisingly fun.
That's the card game, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah, it's the card game version. And you know what? It's actually all right. There's a lot of take that in it, but it's quite fun. It's a lot more fun than the board game. Played Android Infiltration again, which we always enjoy.
I love that game.
It's great. And, I actually got out, which was great. I even laid a load of balls by the door, so everyone going near the entrance flipped over and fell on their arse. Sadly, they found another way out, god damn it. But anyway, I then played, I think this was on the Sunday afternoon, this was actually the last game I played, Ark Nova.
Love Ark Nova.
We've been playing... Now, you guys have obviously played it, and Laura and I have been wanting to play Ark Nova for quite a while, because obviously of all of the buzz. And I have essentially just redubbed it Terraforming Zoos, because that's essentially what it is. It's just terraforming Mars with a little bit of tile placement. But it is very good, actually. I really enjoyed it. I would happily play again. Yeah, I would happily play it. I'm tempted to buy it, but
I've been looking through my board game stats at Ark Nova because I've been playing it quite a lot, and I played it. My first game was on the 13th of December last year at Sid's house.
I thought it was back then, yeah.
Where I lost and scored just 1 point, and now my average score is 130.
130?
Yeah.
Jesus. Wow, I scored 11.
Yeah.
I did win, but
yeah, I'm pretty good at Ark Nova these days. Not as good as some people that I know, but yeah. I play it a lot, though, to be honest. I play it a lot.
No,
is that when you play on... Yeah, you play on Board Game Arena.
I play on Board Game Arena, but I do...
Yeah.
My physical one, right here.
Oh, so are you buying the expansion, Rory?
I'm 100% getting the expansion. It sounds fantastic. Even though the people I will play the game with all already have the game and the expansion.
It's the one with the water in it. It's the water.
Yeah,
beasties.
it's water. It also adds in a drafting mechanic and special cards for the actions that are different for each player. It's a bit more differentiation between the players. It's cool. Sounds very, very good.
Excellent. No, I did enjoy it. Alora and I both enjoyed it. She got minus 30 points. I just want to get that dig in there. She did not do well, sadly. But there's obviously a lot of potential there. It's the difference between 11 points and 130. There's obviously scope to improve and get your tactics better. So yeah, there's a lot to explore in it. It's definitely, I think it's definitely more interesting and just generally better than terribly boring farce. So of the two, I'd get Ark Nova over that. I played Five Towers. I think I mentioned Five Towers from Tabletop Scotland. It's one of the games I played with Mark Cooke. The idea is you are trying to build literally 5 towers. It's a bidding game, so you put 5 cards out. There are 5 towers with parts numbered from sort of 15 to 0, 0 being the highest bit. And you're literally trying to build these towers, and you can only put a lower number onto a higher number. But you've got to bid for these cards, and then obviously it's got to be a legit bid. If you can't place the cards, then you can't bid. And that's literally it. You go through the deck twice, and then you add up all the cards in your towers, and then that's the number of points you get. It's really quite simple. But if you can cap your tower with a 0, you can never change that tower, but you can then score sort of double points for the tower. So your interest obviously is to get a really big tower and then sort of double score it. But obviously everyone else is trying to do the same. Very straightforward, very simple, very fun. Definitely better with more players because obviously you get the player interaction with the bidding and stuff. Saboteur, we played. I've talked about that. Really love it. To everyone's surprise. And I also played Citadels. I don't know if you guys have played Citadels. That is a sort of hidden information
Citadels
game.
was big when I first got into board gaming, and it was a bit of a Marmite game then.
I can see why you wouldn't like it. I think the downtime in it is bloody annoying, especially with a higher player count. I quite like the idea of it, and I do enjoy playing it, but yeah, I think it's probably best with about 5 players, because was it 7 or 9 of us that were playing? Something like that. It was quite slow. Because obviously everyone takes the time trying to decide which role to take for that particular round, then passes it on, and it just takes bloody ages. Anyway, so we also played one more game, which we didn't actually play at the con. We played at home, which was Boop. So it's a very Halloween version.
Beg your pardon.
Boop. It's actually called Boop, but this is a Halloween edition of it. And Alora couldn't resist it because it's all about cats jumping onto a bed. So it's a 2-player game only, and it's kind of like it's a strategy game, and the idea is you have kittens and you have cats, and you have to upgrade your kittens into cats, and the first person to get 3 cats in a line wins the game. However, and there's I think it's a 6x6 or 7x7 grid on this, so basically it represents the bed, and you put a playing piece into one of the squares. And anything that's next to it gets booped to one side. So the cat jumps on and everything sort of jumps to the side. So kittens boop other kittens, but kittens can't boop cats, but cats can boop everything else. And you get 3 kittens in a line, you upgrade them all to cats. So obviously this is how you get a row of cats, because you just start with kittens. For such a simple game, it is incredibly good. We really enjoyed it. Alora's terrible at it, although she got better. But she did freely admit that you're going to kill me at this, aren't you, Andy? Yes, I am. And then did. But it's very good, very straightforward. It is literally just 8 kittens, 8 cats on the side. There is a ghost cat for the Boop version, which basically you can put this ghost cat, goes essentially along a row between squares, and any cats it sort of goes past get scared and jump to the side, whether they're your own or anybody else's. So that was quite fun. We've bought that. Really enjoyed that. So yes, it was a fun weekend. I shall not mention that I managed to destroy my car on the way there, so the curse of Airecon for my cars continues.
Curse of any gaming convention, isn't it?
Not any gaming convention, just most of them.
UK Games Expo, Airecon.
Airecon this year was fine.
The main Airecon, I mean, it's one Airecon, wasn't? So yeah.
No, indeed.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's only one Airecon per year is the issue.
Yes, I managed to hit a pothole and got a double blowout. One of the tyres that blew out had literally been fitted the day before.
Oh no!
Yeah, so not happy. I shall be sending a horrible letter to Shropshire County Council. And I've also discovered I now have a slow puncture in one of the ones, the front one that popped as well, and I suspect I've cracked my alloy, so I'm even less happy. But anyway, the con itself was very, very good. The only small criticism I have of it, because everything's in lots of rooms, it's a bit of a pain to see who wants to play a game or not. Because in a big open space, you can put the lightsaber up and say, I want to play a game, and just look across the room and see what's going on. With lots of different rooms, it's obviously very hard to see that. There are some big rooms where there's a lot more players, and obviously it works better in there. But for the whole con, to just see like a massive great room is probably slightly easier than lots of little rooms. But other than that, it was bloody good.
Very interesting. I am looking. I was meant to go, couldn't make it in the end, but I am going to the Epic LAN Tabletop 5 in Warwick this weekend.
Oh,
where I will be playing. I've already booked in to play Homogeny on Sunday.
Hermione.
Hermione. I'll be playing Hermione on Sunday.
So there you go. That was Airecon West. It was good fun. Strongly recommended to go if you can. And obviously, being a hotel, you can actually stay over, of course. But because we're only half an hour up the road, obviously we don't. So we came home. But it was fun. So strongly recommended. Well done, Martin and Mark, and the team.
So one of the games, Andy, that's on your list that you haven't mentioned, because we're going to talk about it now in some more detail, is...
It was almost deliberate.
Almost deliberate. It's also, we planned it. We had a brief discussion and, with biscuits and a cup of tea before we started recording. We are going to talk about Tiwanaku from Sit Down Games. And this was a game that I was really keen to look at during the UK Games Expo. Got myself a copy while I was there. Steve, after Amanda played, half a turn, decided that it needed to happen.
Yep.
And then Andy's played it as well. So unfortunately, Sid, you've not had a chance to play it.
I missed out. But that's okay. I'll pick it up afterwards. So you need to tell me all about it. Because I remember Steve giving us a brief overview after the expo. But now let's hear what you've got to do now you've played it a bit more.
I played it a little bit more. So I'm still utterly rubbish at this game. It is I think it's quite a deep thinking game, because it has an element of Sudoku to it and an element of Minesweeper to it, and it's how these two combine in a competitive game. So you have your little board of squares, and it's going to be preceded by the mission you pick, with certain terrain types in certain locations. So there's sand, grass, mud, and mountains. They're going to be on the board in some places. You're then going to stack up a number of tiles, which you're going to be told on the back of the setup disc of how many remain for each terrain type. And then you're going to put some crops on these tiles as well. And they are numbered 1 through 5, and they're meant to represent things like chili and sweet potato, and I think one of them is even cauliflower. And you put these.
I think it's corn, but
maybe not cauliflower. No, I was being silly. Andy nods knowingly. You were being silly, Rory. And you put these out, and the idea of the game is you have to explore one square at a time from a given edge, with using your little explorer meeples, of which you only have a certain number. Every time you go into an unoccupied square, you're going to find out what type of terrain it is. The terrain can only appear in, they have to be in contiguous shapes, ranging from 1 to 5 a total area
of the same terrain
type. And you also know that the one terrain type, mud, cannot be adjacent to another mud region. So you're going to have a 5 of mud, can't be adjacent to another 2 of mud, which is important later. Then you have to try and divine what crops are on each of these mud tiles. So you continue with that example. So if you've got a 5 and a 4 already on this mud tile, you know that the remaining 3 are numbers 1, 2, and 3, each of worth 1, 2, and 3 points respectively. But a 1 can't be adjacent to any other 1 on any other neighbouring terrain type. So you have to slowly explore the terrain types, and as you do so, you'll score points. And you want to try and keep your exploration fairly level to maintain your point scoring. Then you're going to try and divine what crops are on there, and that is where you have to try and be really, really clever and take some educated guesses sometimes. And one of the things I love about this game is it's got the best board game component in the history of board game components, and that's the Pakanaku wheel. which is this fantastic little device that you slip discs in, which the back of the disc tells you the setup and what tiles you need and where they need to go. You slip that in, keeping it face down, and then you've got this wheel, and you have to turn it. So you've got you got fire lizards. So you've got weathers along the top. Is it so you've got moon, sun, wind, water.
It's basically it's a coordinate system.
Yeah,
isn't
it's a coordinate
so
system.
Two different symbols. So rather than using numbers and letters, so you elements and animals, it gives you these two coordinates, which allows you to pick the tile you're looking at. And so hides everything from you. And there's this clever mechanism which then you do these two sliders and then reel back another slider, and it tells you whether, depending on whether you're looking at the terrain or the crop on there, it tells you what it is, doesn't it? Yeah. It's an amazing piece of design, that thing.
It really is fantastic, and I love this game. I really enjoy this game, and I enjoy this game for two reasons. One, when you work out that you're sat on a 5 crop and you guess it and you get it right, you feel so smug. You feel so satisfied with yourself. Yes, I got that one and I knew it. I worked it out. I was like a proper Sherlock Holmes. Bang this one out, not a problem. Conversely, I hate this game because when you're absolutely certain you're sat on a 3 and that's what you need to get your bonus points, and it turns out no, it's a 2, Rory, because it could only ever possibly be a 2 because there's already a 3 on this one, you idiot. You feel like an utter moron. And I find this game absolutely fascinating. I really enjoy it. But you guys have played it, so what do you think? And have I missed anything? I think it's quite an abstract game.
Yes, the theme is tenuous, should we say. Mm. I mean, it's got this kind of... I'm going to get this wrong. I get all the South American kind of ancient cultures wrong, Incan or Aztec or whatever it is. I know I've got that wrong, but it's got that theming on it, but that is really just wallpaper.
Yeah.
It could be almost anything. It could be pirates looking for treasure.
Yes.
It could be space exploration and you're looking at meteors and planets or something
exactly.
like that.
It really could be that.
It could be anything. It's just a flavour which makes the tokens for it. I've played this a few times now. I do really like it. I am not brilliant at it. Ends up I'm not actually very good at Sudoku. So I struggle with this a bit. I do like the way there's 2 ways of scoring points.
Yeah.
So you get, when you reveal the territories, these terrains, you get points based on how many different terrains you've explored, which also encourages you to explore lots of places rather than just go, right, well, I found one mountain, I'll just find the rest of these mountains. It encourages you to go, right, well, now I need to find out what's surrounding that, and I'm actually going to be worse off points-wise if I just can continue exploring this mountain, which is really intriguing because it encourages you to actually make the game more difficult when you come to the crop side of it, which I really quite like.
It also helps your opponents.
Yes, yeah. So I know it encourages you to kind of spread out and do things. The movement's quite interesting because it's meeple. You've got these little meeples on the board, which is how you decide where you're doing things, but they can't move past other people. So you can actually block people in and screw them over, as we found at the last game I played with you, Rory.
Yes, you did do that, Steve. Yeah.
Yes, I blocked you because I thought, well, I don't want you getting those last 5 points. So I made sure your meeple couldn't get anywhere near me.
Yeah, had to spend whole 2 fecking turns getting him off the board, and then putting him back on the board, and then moving where I wanted him to. At which point Steve had gone there anyway. Git.
So there's an extra layer of strategy there, which is not just about working out what's nearby you to score the points. There is an element of blocking people and making sure that you've got them, which again adds a lovely layer to this. It's bizarre criticism. I'm not sure if it's a criticism, but maybe a mis-selling. There was a point, and especially in this game where we played, Rory, where it's supposed to be that you can always work out what the crops are.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be perfect information. However, we came to a situation where it could have been one or the other.
Yes.
Just to the way the layout was. It was like, it could have been I think it was a 1 and 2.
I thought it was a 1 and a 3, but yeah.
1 and 3.
Either
it was
way.
low, yeah. Either number worked. So it was the last 2 tiles on the board. So the person who went second to last had to guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then that also determined what the person who went last was going to get. Yeah. And it was one of these things that it should, the board advertised as being, you should always be able to work it out, but you couldn't in this circumstance. And we double checked it afterwards, made sure we hadn't made a mistake, and we hadn't. So it just ended up that being through whatever the layout was, it wasn't a completely perfect solution, because it's not quite the same as Sudoku. It's closer to Minesweeper in a way.
It is basically Minesweeper. I don't really see how you get it as Sudoku just because it has numbers in it. It's just Minesweeper.
Well, no, because if each pattern of areas can only go up to the number. So if you've got 4, it has to have 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's the same as Minesweeper.
Yeah, but Minesweeper is just telling you how many is burst. So the Sudoku thing is working out. Well, it can't be this, it can't be that. So it's they're similar things. They're just different. They're same, two halves of the same.
I'm being
coin,
pedantic,
really.
but yeah, okay. Yes,
pedantic.
Never.
But yes, I really liked it.
I thought it was okay. I have no real desire to play it again because I'm one of those, autistic types who didn't need the piece and pen and paper to write all of the answers down. I just had it in my head, but I'm weird like that.
Pen and paper?
Yeah, there's a pad that comes with it so you can work out where everything is. Did you guys not play with that?
No.
The guy we were playing with had like the super duper Kickstarter edition, so it had like really sexy components.
Standard version doesn't have the notepad.
Does it not?
So
No.
as a player, you get given a notepad so that you can try and track and work out where things are.
I didn't use it. Everybody else did.
I'm just saying. But that's that seems. I mean, I do that when I play this game on Board Game Arena,
Okay.
but I'm
So I
fully
played it
aware
properly,
that is cheating.
Yes. No, apparently there is a pad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that is not in the standard version.
And I don't
you go.
want it in the standard version.
No, you shouldn't have it. I agree.
We have never played with that. So
Excellent. So, but I found it was okay.
That's shaken to me to the core. I'm sorry.
He's angry now.
I'm angry now.
I can see his piss boiling from here. But
The pad, or the fact that I didn't really enjoy it?
No, the pad.
Yeah, it's probably optional, but yes, it was brought out. I didn't use it, but everybody else did.
I'm lost as to why is that a bad thing? How does that break the game or change the game?
It doesn't break it. It doesn't break it. It just makes it far too bloody easy because you can write everything down. The whole point, you're supposed to work it out in your head. It's a puzzle. Do it in your head.
So Sid, to more directly answer your question, that if I've got a pad here and I've a little grid and I'm working out, so it allows me to spend more time thinking and put my thoughts down on this piece of paper. So if I've worked out that this one is going to be a 3 or a 4, I don't have to hold that information in my head anymore. Right. Okay. I can then concentrate on the next thing that Steve or Amanda are doing. Go, all right, so that one must be a 1, and which means I don't have to try and remember anything. Which, when you play it live, that's kind of part of the puzzle, is that you're under that almost self-imposed time pressure of, I'm not going to sit here for 5 minutes working out what the optimal move is or which one is a 5 and which one's a 4, because I want, we're under this social contract that we carry on playing, that we enjoy it, and no one has that benefit. That's what the pad does. It takes away. It's kind of cheating. Basically, it's cheating in my book, because I think, look, we talked about this before. John used to do this, take notes about what things he's going to do and what your opponents are doing. Really, I think these types of games, you should have to hold that in your head. If you can't remember what this is, then it's not important. But all the information in Tiwanaku is important. So you've got, that's part of the challenge, is trying to remember what it is. And that's where you make these mistakes by going, I'm going to divine and this one's a 3. Rory, you just divined the one next to it, and that was a 3 as well. Which happens, and that's part of the fun, is getting it wrong and making those silly mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know on Board Game Geek someone did something similar for Star Wars Rebellion, which I think completely destroys the game. So one of the things Star Wars Rebellion is the Empire. You're trying to hunt down the rebels. So you've got a deck of cards that you're picking up, which tells you which planets the rebels are not on. Yeah. And part of the game is you going flicking through the cards and forgetting that you've already been to Hoth and cleared it out because it's at the bottom of the deck. But people have made little notepads so you can cross off the planets as you go. And it's like, well, that makes it far too. The game's balanced on people making these mistakes.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
That's why I don't like the pad.
It's a good, solid argument. I reckon you'll have stirred up the masses though by that statement.
We're bound to have a comment about it. Yeah.
It's gonna be controversial.
I enjoyed it, but I don't want to play. I don't really want to play it again. Really, I just found it a bit kind of meh.
I'd be interested if you play this again with people who aren't using a notepad.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the issue. I mean, I came second, so I wasn't particularly bothered. And weirdly, Alora won, although she was using a pad. So the people who had played it before, who were using a pad, didn't win. So I wasn't particularly bothered by that in a way, although I would prefer that they didn't do that. It's just, I found it a bit kind of, it's interesting and it's clever, but I didn't actually find it that exciting.
Fair enough.
Right, is it okay?
It's not bad. I just thought it was kind of, yeah, it's all right.
No, that's just I've had a very different experience with this game.
I'm excited about this game, and I'm a bit. I don't know if Andy's just kicked the shine off it a little bit there. Because I thought Andy would have liked this game based on what I'd heard of the other the other two guys talk about it.
But I just found it was just kind of, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was, I found it a bit slow. Maybe, I don't know, I just found it a bit straightforward. I don't know.
See, I think this is it's very much a puzzle type game.
Oh yeah, very much so.
It's a very, very puzzly game, and I've always found the puzzles to be quite challenging.
And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why I hadn't factored that into it. I didn't appreciate the puzzle element, because you're one, Andy, that as soon as you see the puzzle and you can see the way through it, you're done with it, aren't you? Usually, you lose your interest. So maybe that's the bit I hadn't appreciated when we spoke about it last.
That's why I think the blocking other people is the important part as well.
Yeah.
So understanding, once you've realised that Andy's worked it out, then you block him so he can't get to those points.
So you're changing his route through the puzzle.
Yeah.
And that only comes from the players.
That's quite sneaky. I quite like that.
I did like that aspect of it, that you could get in the way. I mean, the players we were playing with were quite friendly, although I did get blocked in once, although not horribly. But it didn't really change the outcome of the game. But I don't know. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Sid. Is that I've seen it now. There's very little that game offers me now. It's just going to be exactly the same next time.
It's just a repeat. It's a slightly different puzzle, but it is the same experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it definitely it falls into that. It's more of a puzzle than it is a game.
Very much so, yes.
Because the game
I didn't dislike it. It was interesting when I played it, but I'm no interest in playing it again.
It sounds like you're being a really polite way of saying you don't like it.
I didn't dislike it. I thought it was a very clever game, but as you say, it wasn't really a game, it was a puzzle. And now I've solved it, or I've seen enough of it, then I'd rather play something else. Believe it or not, I think I'd rather have something with a dice in it.
Wow.
I know.
Sacrilege.
Well, I want to play it, so I think we'll have to have a shot of it at some point.
Yeah, it's a relatively short game, so it's one of those things you can easily knock in between other stuff. You know.
So that's Tiwanaku from Sit Down Games.
I'm going to start this little description of the next game by a little anecdote that Rory actually let me know that I'm really amazed that I didn't spot this earlier. So we played a Leader Games game the other day, right?
Yeah.
And Rory pointed out that every single Leader Games game only has 4 letters in the title. So Vast, Root, Ahoy, Arcs, Oath.
Yeah.
I didn't spot this before. Fort, yes. Yeah. So the other week, me and Rory played Ahoy, and I believe you played this quite a bit, haven't you, Rory?
I've only played this once before, which...
Oh, really?
Which I know, I understand why you're surprised, since my score was so high, Steve. Yeah.
So you'll be unsurprised to learn, with this being a Leader Games game, it is an asymmetric game in which every faction works differently. But this is a game about pirates. And it's a game about... it's a dice placement game in which the aim of the game is slightly different depending on which team you are, but there are 4 factions, and they basically work in 2 similar ways. So there are the Shark Pirates...
The Bluefin Squadron.
Bluefin Squadron, and then the red ones are the...
So red and white are the smugglers.
Right.
The yellow are the... I'm going to call them a confederation. I completely forgot what they are now.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's 2 lots of pirates and there's 2 lots of smugglers, basically. And the pirates win by basically amassing victory points by controlling territories. But where it gets interesting is the smugglers gain points by smuggling goods into territories. And when they smuggle goods into territories, the victory point value of that territory goes up. So,
Right.
what this means
Both
is...
of them
yes,
look lost. It's brilliant.
everyone looks like... You know that thing when the dog sticks his head sideways? That's what Sid looks like now. So what that means is...
I'm going to rub my beard in a minute.
You want the smugglers to smuggle things and score victory points as the pirates, because that's how you score victory points as well, or that's how you increase your victory points. So what happens is, we played a 3-player game. So one smuggler was the Rory, and me and the player were the pirates. So we were fighting over control of areas, basically. Whereas at the same time, Rory was scooting back and forth, like smuggling goods, which was up in the value. So of course, as soon as it went up in value, the two pirate parties just went straight for that point to try and fight over that new place, which is now worth more points. Yeah,
Right,
Sid's got it. There's a light bulb just went on above Sid's head.
Clicked now. So
Yeah.
you're talking about unoccupied territories that you're smuggling into rather than occupied.
No.
So you've got these tiles, 4x4 grid, and each tile has an island on it. Right, so I, as a smuggler, want to try and get stuff to that island, but every time I do that, I increase the wealth of that tile. That tile goes from 1 to 2 to 3 every time I smuggle something there. Steve and Tim, in this case, they wanted to have, they're essentially doing area control. They want to have the most amount of their ships or their units on a region which is more valuable, but I dictate which regions are going to become more valuable.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Well, that's quite clever, that.
Yeah, and then the two pirates work differently. So I was the shark pirates, and basically what I did is I had my main pirate ship that moved around, and every time I stopped moving, I'd drop a little shark fin, which is like a little shark trooper on the board. Right? So mine were basically, every time I moved, another unit went out. Mm-hmm. So I'm encouraged to keep moving because I'm the shark.
Yeah. The dawn of realization when Steve was like, "Oh, I get it now. I'm a shark. I've got to keep moving." It was like, they themed it well, Steve.
Whereas the other player puts troops down on islands. So he wants to control islands, whereas I want to, as the shark, I wanted to control the seas, if that makes sense. But where it gets really interesting as well is if I had two of my little sharks on an island, I could convert them into a fort, which then made it more difficult for Rory to smuggle in and get his points. Because I've put security on that place now, so we don't want smugglers. So even though we want the wealth, we don't actually want the smuggler scoring points.
So it gets, love this.
I
want to play this a lot.
It gets really, really tricky as a smuggler because the more stuff that Steve and the two pirate players have on the board, I have to be really careful about sailing around because I don't want to get into a fight because the two pirates, believe it or not, are good at fighting in one way or another. A smuggler, not so good. So I need to try and skirt around all of their ships, all of their units to just get to the island. Steve and Tim kind of want that too, so they almost have to leave these little avenues for me to get through without blowing me up, because if I have to spend turns repairing my ship, I'm not increasing the value of their regions.
But at the same time, every time he's increasing the value of a region, he's scoring points, so it might beat us when we come to the end of the game.
Yeah.
It's one of those games as well where the score kind of ratchets as you go. So at the beginning of the game, there's not many islands, only worth 1 point each. But by the time of it, you've got several islands, and some of them worth 1 to 6 because there's just a dice which says how many victory points it is. So beginning of the game, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 victory points. By the end of the game, you're scoring like 10 victory points a round, kind of thing. The other interesting thing which we found is the game is based on a deck of cards, which is basically crew for the pirates and goods for the smugglers.
That top or bottom.
And we thought we were going through them at a hell of a rate, and it ended up we ran out of these cards at exactly the point when the game ended.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that which triggered the end game, it was victory points that triggered the end game.
Right.
So we quite literally picked up the last card, then the round ended, and then the game ended. It was like, oh wow, that's
Well, it was one.
that's remarkable.
It was so well done, but Tim's players, the Yellow Pirates, has a deck of cards and he draws 2 cards and these are like special abilities. but his deck of cards ran out at the same time as the communal deck of cards, which also happened at the same time we hit the 30 points end game trigger. Everything ran out at exactly the same time. It was so well designed, so clever.
Well, we haven't even talked about the main concept of the game. The main game is just the dice placement. So you just roll some dice and you place them on your board to represent the actions you take. So you can't just keep moving, for instance, because certain actions will be blocked up by the dice you're using. The other interesting action is everyone's got cannons on their ship, but you have to load your cannons, which means you have to put one of the dice from your worker placement into the cannon spot. But the problem is combat doesn't happen unless someone has got their cannons loaded. But if someone's got their cannons loaded, a fight's going to happen. And everyone gets a bit twitchy. So one person loads their cannon and everyone gets a bit twitchy. They're like, do I stay away from him now or do I load my cannons as well?
And in typical leader games fashion, like combat is done really simply. It is just my die, my D6 versus your D6. Again, really, really simple. I can choose before the dice are rolled as the attacker how many pips on my dice that's in my cannon slot I'm going to give up. So if I've used a 5 die in my cannon slot, I can sack off all 5 of those pips that add a +5 to whatever I roll, which is really interesting. So it's like Steve's as the bluefin, he's actually got 2 slots for dice in his cannons because he's meant to be super aggressive. And it is, as soon as somebody puts a die in there, it's everybody gets twitchy. Or you go, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid Steve so that he's wasted a die.
Question for you then.
Yeah.
You played it 3-player, yeah?
Yeah.
2 pirates, 1 smuggler.
Yep.
Does that put the smuggler at a disadvantage or the pirates at an advantage? Or is it all really nicely balanced and it still plays well? Or is this one of these games that plays the wrong way to the normal rule of even number? So 2 plays more balanced than a 4 plays more balanced.
I've not played this 2 players. In a 2-player game, you don't have the smuggler. And I think the 2-player game, this is probably the weakest version of the game. It is just pirate v pirate, and the areas, the islands, just ratchet up every turn. So they become more and more valuable the longer they're on the board.
Oh, that sounds shit.
So I don't really want to play this 2 players. At 3, it's great. At 4, you have 2 smugglers.
Right. Okay.
Which gets interesting because then the smugglers are really trying to compete because we're then racing for the goods. I've got to go pick up because there's 6 different suits and they're all pirate themes. So you've got cutlass, compass, parrots, palm trees on the top of the card, which is where you've got to go to collect it from. And then at the bottom of the card, it's got another suit and that's where you've got to deliver it from. So when you've got 2 smugglers, it becomes a lot more of a race to try and get the good stuff to do the shortest journeys as quickly as possible. So in a 4-player, the smugglers are really just competing against each other and don't care about the pirates. In a 3-player game, I didn't have to compete. I just had to be a lot more mindful about where I was going to because the pirates have a bit more sway in discouraging me from certain areas.
Sounds like there's a lot of push and pull then. So there's a lot of changing of hands of territories then as you go through the game.
Yes, there is. Yeah, it was very much a case of like where Rory went. If Rory upped the dice a bit too much, it was like, well, now I've got to try and take that territory off the other player because that's 3 points, and it's 30 points to end the game.
Rory taking territory off you? Where's that happened before?
But there's definitely a push and pull, and the smuggler does that bizarrely. I'd like to try this 4-player to see how much chaos having an extra smuggler causes. But there is a definite push and pull, and the smuggler can almost direct the combat in a way, and pull them towards where, because they have control over where's the highest points. I say that most of the time Rory was just grabbing whatever cards he could, because of course we want the same cards as their crew, which give us bonuses.
Yeah.
So there's a fight over which cards. And if you're being tactical, we could have said, right, I don't want Rory to get that card because that will give him points or that will allow him to take this. But what was happening is we were just taking the really juicy power-ups, of which some of them are really...
Some of them are really good.
Juicy.
Yeah. So, no, this is a cracking game. I've ordered on Etsy, I've ordered my little stickers for all of my meeples. So they're going to be arriving from Levity Games, who did my stickers for Bonfire. And And I've also got the new expansion, or the first expansion, launches next Tuesday, which adds 4 new factions to the game.
Wow. Okay.
One of them,
Whoa.
and one of them, I think, is like this, like Leviathan type squid type thing. There isn't a lot of information out at the moment, just a few photos. There's another shark faction. There's one that looks like a sea serpent type thing. But yeah, that's hitting back a kick on Tuesday the 14th. And I'm all over that.
I'm not surprised. It
I'm
does
not
sound pretty
surprised.
good.
It's really good, actually. Yeah.
If you haven't played an asymmetric game before, I think Ahoy is an absolutely fantastic introduction to it, because everybody scores points in a very similar way. Everybody takes their actions in a very similar way, but yet everything feels quite different.
Right, okay.
So a combat works the same way. Everybody scores. The smugglers score points the same way. The pirates score points the same way. But what you do to achieve those are slightly different, and it's really clever. I think if you've not played an asymmetric game, Ahoy is a great shout to start it off with. Really good fun, definitely good, definitely great with 3 players. Really great with 4 players. I don't know about 2 yet. Maybe I should try it.
Yeah, it's a 3-player
I
game.
think when it comes on to 2, it might just be a bit of an area control game. And
Yeah.
I think you lose the juicy centre, which is the smuggler.
I take it Root doesn't work very well with 2 as well. for the
No,
same
it doesn't
kind of
at all.
reason.
At all.
Yeah.
And you can play it. It recommends basically one of you plays as the cat and the other one plays as, I think it's the
Eerie dinosaur. Yeah.
But it's not, I mean, it works, but it's not as good.
I think Root at 2 players is good for a tutorial. If you want to,
Yes.
if you want to learn how to play this faction, or you're teaching the fundamentals of the game.
Yeah,
2
that's
players.
probably fair, yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you let the cat run away with it, unless you know what you're looking for, again, it's one of these games that you need to know how it works before you can play it, kind of thing. You know, you need to play it before you can play it. You know, if you run away, if you let the cat just keep going and going, they're going to win because they'll just breed. The area is difficult to manage. It's powerful if you can get the chain of events right, because obviously if you get too many cards in one thing, you lose them all and the whole thing goes back to 0. But yeah, again, I think you're right, although I've still not figured out how the what was the faction you played, Steve? It was the mercenary one.
It was
The Riverboat Company. or something,
Riverboat
wasn't it?
Company.
Riverboat Company,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. Because nobody knew how to make use of your stuff, so nobody bought any of your things, so you didn't get any points, which is a bit rubbish. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really difficult because it was you wanted to convince people to use your troops in
That's it.
fights, and you can see similarities between the way the balancing in Ahoy and Root works. Yeah, the kind of this concept of you both want to do the things that both get you points, but you don't want to then give the other person points, kind of thing. You know, I wanted my troops to be used in other people's battles, and I got victory points if they were used, but no one wanted to give me the money or the points.
Yeah.
So it's like no one used me. It was like, oh, okay. A bit frustrating, that was, if I remember, but that's a while ago. That's a few years back. I played that now.
But I never really thought we had that problem with Ahoy. I don't think there's a case you don't need to play it to learn how to play it. It's quite easy to pick up.
Yeah,
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
yeah, it's much more straightforward than Root.
Yeah, okay.
Because you are, at least with Ahoy, you are playing a very similar game in that you were all doing like dice placement to your actions. It's not like Root where effectively you're all playing completely different mechanics.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well that's good. So it's kind of like baby's first Root then.
No,
I'd say
No?
it's
Okay.
it's a different game, but it feels like a Leader Games. It
Sure.
feels like it's by the same people who made Roots. You can
Okay.
see, I mean, not just because the artwork's similar and and the components are similar, but you can feel the same kind of brain concept has gone into it.
Yeah. Strongly recommended Ahoy from Leader Games. And if you've got it already, do have a look at Back a Kick on Tuesday the 14th.
Right, should we delve into the mailbag, Mr. Gill?
Well, yes, because it can taunt me further that I've not played any games in months.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Well, apart from June, but we haven't really talked about that yet,
We'll,
have we?
we'll talk about June. Well, we can touch on that in part of the mailbag, but there's a couple of good questions in the bag. And I think we will start with Derek's. Because I'm really interested by this one. So Derek asks us, what are your impressions of how crowdfunded board games have changed over the years? Is the value still there? Are offerings better or worse? And do you think it's a beneficial development? Discuss, gentlemen.
I, having just received Age of Comics last week, I am no longer waiting on any Kickstarters. I am Kickstarter free now.
Now, does that also include game founds, backer kits?
Yes. Until next Tuesday.
Until next Tuesday when the Ahoy expansion comes out.
But really, backer kit is just a pre-order system anyway. I mean, but yeah, as of right now, I'm not on any crowdfunding platforms at all. I have looked at, there's a couple of games on Kickstarter that I have looked at and considered, and I've chosen not to do it because I do not think the value's there anymore. I know that once most of these games that I'm looking at, I know that when they actually are released to retail, I'll be able to pick them up, even the Kickstarter editions, cheaper and with less shipping. The only difference is I won't get them early. But considering I very rarely do I get a brand new game and play it like that day, let alone that month, I'm okay waiting a few weeks. And most of the stuff I'm looking at are from actually quite established companies that arguably, do they need to go down the Kickstarter route still?
I think there's a strong argument that says most of them don't anymore. So yes,
Yeah,
especially the bigger companies. You know, they've. I mean, people like Awaken Realms, as much as we actually love their stuff, they've done most of the development themselves under their own steam before the Kickstarter or the GameFound actually gets even published. You know, they're 90%. The only thing you're doing is funding the production of the miniatures. Is basically what the campaign's for. I don't know. I am getting, especially since the world has changed in the last few years, and you know VAT is being applied properly, and shipping costs have gone through the roof. It is getting less value for money than it was, I think. I mean, I've backed some fairly big ones in my time, as you know, and even the smaller ones, depending on the company. Even that, you know, you can spend, say, 40 or 50 quid on a board game for you know, an average Kickstarter now, an entry-level one, but you'd still be paying 30 quid for shipping. Yeah. And to me, that's a bit on the steep side. So, sorry, not just the shipping, but obviously with the VAT and all of that included as well. It's, depending on what you buy, it can start to get definitely less good than it used to be.
Yeah. There's one game I'm looking at in particular. I have stopped looking at. I'm going to not look at it any further because I'm tempted. But it's a two-player game which ticks a lot of boxes for me. But like the Fancy Pants edition is 50 plus quid, and that's before I deal with shipping. And I was like, can I really justify £80 on a two-player board game? Because that seems like a lot of juice.
For a two-player, yeah.
For a two-player game.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're on about. Sounds about right.
I don't know. But then I look at like other games, like other great two-player games like Santorini. Santorini is less than 30 quid, right?
Yeah, but I've got other great two-player games, you know, like Star Wars Rebellion and Horus Heresy.
And how much is Star Wars Rebellion, Steve?
I've heard about 80 quid at the moment, yeah. And I want War of the Ring because I've played it once and I want to play it again, and that's 80 quid. So that's 85 to 100 quid, depending on where you're buying that. So, the number of players doesn't affect the price as far as I'm concerned. You say 80 quid. I personally, we're recording this on the day of recording, the Perseverance Chronicles, Castaway Chronicles, episodes 3 and 4 was launched on GameFound.
Right.
Now, me and Andy have both got episodes 1 and 2.
Yes.
I have played episode 1. Andy has played...
about half of episode 1.
Right, so Andy's played less of it than I have, and I've played half the game. And I played basically 2 games of episode 1, one to teach myself and one to actually play against people. And I'd love to get 3 and 4. I love the idea of this game, and I did enjoy my playthrough of part 1. But I costed it up today, and it's going to cost me about £130, which is the version I can buy because I've got episodes 1 and 2. and that's from GameFound, which means I think that includes VAT, and I think that includes shipping. But that's still £135 for a game,
That's a
which
lot.
I haven't really paid the previous version of it. And I've got stacks of other games here I haven't played. And then it's not just about I've got stacks of games. It's all these Kickstarter games are now massive boxes. We've got Voidfall turned up the other day, which is another Mindclash game. It's a huge box full of stuff. Castaway Chronicles is 1 and 2 is a huge box. Basically takes up a Kallax cube. Anachrony box is the same size. I've got 3 Mindclash boxes now, so that's basically 3 Kallax cubes completely taken up by just 3 games, for instance. I think, I'm kind of mirroring what you're saying here, Rory, and what Andy I think has said as well, in that the death of the VAT dodge and the shipping cost has meant that, in my opinion, that they're not the value for money they were even remotely for. To give you an example, we know I quite like Kingdom Death Monster. I got the game last year. Now I know that's a very expensive game, and I can't recommend it based on that price. But I knew what I was going in for. The Gambler's Chest, which is the first big expansion. They've done a couple of smaller expansions, but the first big expansion. So this was part of the second Kickstarter. It worked out if you got that original Kickstarter, it cost you about less than £100 for that Gambler's Chest.
Wow.
So it was about, I think, about 100 quid plus shipping for Kingdom Death and Gambler's Chest. Now I've seen someone selling them second hand for 700 quid at the moment.
Jesus.
Bloody hell.
So no, I wasn't part of that Kickstarter, so I don't know how much, if anyone's had to pay extra stuff. But I get the impression that the developer of Kingdom Death has actually self-funded the development, which is why it's taken about 6 years to actually finish distributing that. But you're never going to get that again.
Mm.
You're not going to back a Kickstarter and get, pay 100 quid for a game that's going to come out and be 400 quid a few years later.
No.
And there is still that risk. And it's the fear of missing out, which, Rory said, just get it in retail. There's a lot of games that ain't going to come out in retail.
Yeah. True.
They're still going to be Kickstarter exclusives. But for those that will, I kind of agree with you. It's just like, well...
But even the ones that don't, the second-hand market, the board game groups for buying somebody that's got buyer's remorse or their circumstances change is so buoyant. You can get it. You'll always be able to get it. Maybe you'll pay a bit more. Maybe you won't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't. From my perspective, my experience of all this stuff is all about RPGs, and frankly, I'm not doing it anymore. Because I buy the RPG, and even less so than a board game, will I play it straight away.
Yeah.
I've got a backlog. Those boxes behind me are all full of RPGs that I haven't even taken out the shipping box. And I shit you not. It's an embarrassment. And it's like, why am I buying it early? And it is literally, it's kudos. It's being able to brag that you got the PDF early, or you read it a bit earlier than anybody else. But do you know what? I'm north of 40. I don't need that kind of belly rub anymore, frankly.
I think for me, I think we're quite far away from what Kickstarter I think was originally meant to be. It was meant to help a small publisher that needed money to get this idea, this game funded and off the ground.
Wasn't it originally set up so that it could basically fund a rave? Is that right?
You might be right. I know before board games got on about, it was all about community projects. And I remember when I first went on there and started backing board games, you had to kind of sift through all the community projects before you get to the board games.
But I'm thinking with you only go back 10 years or so when Alleycat Games were launching Dice Hospital and Braincrack Games were launching Ragusa and Inside the Box when they did Subtech, these were to help those companies actually start. That was so that those guys that, Cesar and Lewis and Peter, I don't ever should mention his name, that was so that they could actually quit their day job and go into being a game designer, game publisher full time, because that was their passion and that's what they wanted to do. Now I don't see a lot of companies that are like that need that help and support in the same way that they did 10 years ago.
They're there. I think they're lost in the noise now.
They're probably, yeah.
I think
right.
what's happened is it's become a machine now.
Yes.
And, it's Tuesday. We record this on a Tuesday. As we're talking, usually loads of Kickstarters get launched because Jamie Stegmar said
Do it on
6
a
years
Tuesday,
ago
yeah.
that Tuesday's the best day, so every Kickstarter launches on a Tuesday. It'll have been all over your Facebook feed for the last week.
Yeah.
Facebook adverts. It'll be all over Board Game Geek. They'll be all over YouTube with all the previewers doing playthroughs of it.
Yeah.
And based on some controversies which happened recently, we know how much board game publishers are paying for those YouTube previews. So there's thousands of dollars being spent
Before the
that game
Kickstarter launches,
even hits Kickstarter. And we're terrible for it. We're not going to go on there and pick a game that looks like it's just an idea at this point, are we? We want a fully fledged game with 6 expansions and 200
I said
miniatures.
we are
kind of
fueling
thing.
that machine, aren't we?
Yeah.
Does that mean
And we are as a podcast. We go to UK Games Expo. We see the demos. I see Oathsworn. I go drool over the miniatures, so they have to wipe it off afterwards. And before we know it, we're talking about it, and we're dropping 250 quid on Oathsworn kind of thing. And even that's, I feel embarrassed. I love that game, but I've got 4 boxes now because I went back to second Kickstarter so I can get the terrain. So there's 4 huge boxes in the other room. I've got nowhere to put the buggers. I really don't. So yes, I'm kind of with you there. I don't know, but I don't know where it can go. It doesn't seem to be dying, if that makes sense.
No.
it's evolved. It's changing, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think you've hit on the head there. Why would you take a risk now? The pound note has become so valuable over the last 2 or 3 years to each of us, in terms of buying food or taking a punt on a game that may or may not happen, that when you're talking hundreds of pounds, that's not punting territory. That's not backing and taking a risk. That's not funding somebody or supporting to start somebody off. You're not doing any of that anymore. At one point when it was £20, £30, £40, you were going, do you know what? I don't mind losing that.
But the other thing as well is, you mentioned the pound. The exchange rate used to be really good. So what used to happen is, you back a Kickstarter for $95 and you're only paying about 60 quid for that. Yeah. Now the exchange rate's gone the other way. It's like almost 1 for 1.
Yeah.
$95 game is almost 95 quid plus VAT plus shipping.
Yeah.
It's, you look at like the original the Blood Rage. I didn't get the Blood Rage Kickstarter. I bought that game when it came out in retail, and I paid almost as much in retail for what that Kickstarter was with all the expansions, just because the exchange rate, and because you didn't pay VAT and the shipping was like 50p in a curly whirly.
Yeah, it's the shipping that really stings now, isn't it? Looking at some of these games, I'm looking at 20, 30 quid for shipping. But actually, I know that if I buy this from any supplier once it's in retail, I'm not going to pay shipping for it because I'm spending over their threshold to get free delivery. Even if I buy it from the publisher themselves, my shipping will be cheaper when it gets into retail. And that's I can buy the Kickstarter edition when they are selling it themselves. I might even be able to pick it up at con.
It's, yeah. There's also the bloat as well. We touched on it as well. I think the Kickstarter bloat, I'm starting to notice it more than I used to.
Yeah.
The amount of games where you open, you just go, right, well, I've got all this extra stuff. And then, you've got the solo mode. And I've talked in the past that I don't like solo modes. I'm not going to play them. But it's not just that. You've got the solo mode, you've got the cooperative modes, you've got extra scenarios. And you think, well, I need to play this game about 50 times before I even remotely get my money back.
Yeah, to use that mini expansion.
Yeah. I mentioned Anachrony earlier. The Anachrony box is full of mini expansions. I've not played with a single one of them.
Yeah.
So they're just sitting in the box doing nothing at this point,
But they're Kickstarter bloat, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I've got all of the stuff from Lords of Hellas and Lords of Ragnarok as well, and all the stuff from the Tainted Grail series. There's just boxes of miniatures there that they're just bling. They don't even need to be in the game. I bought them so I could paint them, but we all know how that goes, how that story ends. But it's nice to have them. But A, I'm not using them, and B, it's just money just gathering dust on the shelf in reality.
Exactly.
And it's not great.
That's a great question, though.
It's a very good question. I think we've probably answered all the sections of it.
It's not
Has
like
it
us.
changed? Yes. Is the value still there? No. The bet offering's better or worse? Worse. Do you think it's been beneficial? No.
Nice and succinct.
That's a wonderful summary, Sid. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
This man knows how to PowerPoint.
Do you want another one, boss? Right, quickfire round, gentlemen.
Okay.
Fingers on the buzzers. Mark Cooke has sent us a good list.
Oh,
I'm going to
Jesus,
shoot
okay.
them at you. First thing, you hesitate, you're out.
Okay, I'm ready.
Rory's
So I'm
actually
limited.
limbering up here.
Actually limbering up.
I am looking at a wall, a video wall of old men creaking and trying to like flex muscles and hands. It's embarrassing, boys. Stop.
Old men. Look, I told you about my grey hairs in confidence, you bastard.
Look, we've lost focus. We're so old. We can't even stay on focus for more than a minute. Right, come on. Look, Mark Cooke has asked some good questions here. You ready? Are you ready, gentlemen?
Yeah, ready.
Yes. Let's do
Right.
it.
Question number 1. What is your favourite way of deciding the starting player?
Chwazi, next question.
Schwazzy. Yep.
Steve, you lost that round. Hesitation.
Well, no, because
out.
Schwazi's actually called something else. I agree, it's the right answer, but it's Schwazi. You're right. Sorry. Ignore me, old man syndrome. Carry on.
Question 2. Which game have you each played the most, and when was the last time you played it?
Castles of Burgundy 3 days ago.
Hesitation out.
Code names about 3 years ago.
All plays. I'm going to have to look at board game. What's it? Deep stats. I don't know. It's probably
Something you don't like Space Base.
Probably. I've played quite a lot of Bot Factory. I've played quite a lot of Cavern Tavern as well, but not played them for a while. I don't know.
Okay, we're moving on from Andy then.
Yeah.
Andy's not got an answer. What is your favourite box type?
Standard Ticket to Ride size.
Ticket the right size, 30 by 6, yeah. Or 30, or is it by 8 centimetres? I can't remember.
Yeah, standard box size because it fits nicely in a Kallax with 3 other games and it's nice and neat on the shelf. That's all you need.
Oh, that's a good answer, gentlemen. The fact that I got some measurements in that, I'm gonna go to bed happy tonight. Which games would you put in a modern compendium of 4 games?
Define modern. I have to be that.
Last 10 years. Last 10 years.
10 years. Oh God, can't
I
do
would
this
say
one
20,
quick-fire.
but okay. When was Catan out? I know you hate it, Steve, but that's kind of the
Yeah,
benchmark.
20. Yeah, I'd say 20 as well.
Oh,
yeah.
you want 20? Okay.
I'd say 20. So
Go with 20 then. This side of the century. Go
I
on
think
then. There you are.
Pandemic's probably got to be going in there because it's a good game. It's reliable. It's still good. Yeah,
I
Pandemic.
approve. Yeah,
Yeah.
I vote for Pandemic.
Pandemic's
I say
one.
Ticket to Ride as well.
Yeah,
2.
Yeah.
there's got to be a T game in there somewhere.
Teotihuacan, you think?
It's either that or Tolkien, but I think
Zolkin.
Twatty Hadouken or Tolkien, one of the two.
Zolkin should be in there. I agree
Okay,
with
that's 3.
And you've got to have a dice chucker, haven't you? So it's going to be something like Arkham Horror or Mansions of Madness or something along those lines, I reckon.
Mansions of Madness. That's the one we love the most. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we
Not-
go.
Not Mansions
Job
of Middle
done.
Earth.
All right, last question. Who is your favourite convention organiser that's over 6'6"?
Mark Cook.
You've fallen into his trap there, haven't you?
Yeah, well,
Really have, haven't you?
But what's happened is like you've put me in a quick fire question round. You've asked Hermione Granger to answer questions quickly.
You probably use your time turner to go and find out all the answers and come back,
I
haven't
don't
you?
know. I mean, 6'6" is quite tall. I don't think I'm going to find many other convention organisers. You know,
It's
north
true,
of
he
6
is a
foot.
beast of a man, it has to be said.
So
It's hilarious looking at John standing next to me. I know he mentions every time I mention Mark, but John and Mark in the same, they're just standing next to each other is hilarious.
Are you sure John's just not really far away?
Well, and that concludes the evening's entertainment
The
from
quick
Mark.
fire round.
The quickfire round is concluded.
we've got difficult questions next.
With that then, I think we should draw this to a close. thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedra and Collider. If you enjoyed us, please give us a review on your podcast platform of choice and share us with your friends. You can find us on Twitter. Well, I keep calling it Twitter still. It's X. Well, you can find us on X. Send me a message. I will answer. Otherwise, yeah, I don't really go on there anymore. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And we're on Board Game Geek Guild 2726. I've looked at Threads. I haven't opened an account with it yet. If it's worthwhile, people, let me know. But I don't know at the moment whether it's worth it. If you want to ask us a question, please send a question to us via one of those channels. We're always after more questions, as you can see. We do enjoy them. And until next time, happy gaming.
Tatty bye.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.